The tennis forehand is the most important shot in the game, and today we're gonna go over how to hit it heavy and fast, backed by science. Hi guys, it's Coach Vlad from VS Tennis Academy. I'm a PTR Level 2 certified tennis coach. I have over 5,000 hours of coaching experience, and I have multiple national and international wins in Kazakhstan as well as in Asia, as well as some USTA tournaments in America. I'm also a Florida High School state champion in doubles and as a team. And today I'm gonna go over how to add topspin to your forehand and go from a forehand that's flat to hitting it heavy. And it's gonna be a science-based video, so I'm gonna base a bunch of studies that are gonna help you get that spin. So today's video will be broken down into 4 sections, each section covering its own study. So section 1. In section 1, Takahashi and colleagues in 1996 found that the biggest correlation between your topspin and your racket head speed is how fast your racket goes from low to high position, which seems pretty obvious, which means that the ball gets brushed from under to over. But not only that, they also found that the racket is actually facing the ground at about an 8-degree angle whenever the pro tennis players hit it. So the racket goes like this instead of being completely straight. Unlike some people believe though that the racket is like pretty much closed, and that's not what actually happens. Because if the racket was completely closed, the ball will go, into the net. Instead, what happens is the racket goes from low to high, and it's almost completely straight by the time you hit it. You unconsciously are gonna close your racket because the ball's gonna go too deep if you don't close it. So the main thing to focus on here is how fast your racket goes from under to over the ball. So the racket goes from under to over the ball, but it doesn't just brush the ball up like some people do, because if you did brush the ball up, the ball wouldn't go anywhere. Instead, what happens is because your racket is going so fast forward already, you're getting under the ball and brushing it this way, but the racket is still going forward. So this is the motion. So what ends up happening is your racket goes up and forward this way instead of up and here, which, yes, some professional tennis players do, but they go up, forward, and then here. So the racket actually goes over the ball and then here. I'll show some videos of Nadal do it after I'm editing this video. So altogether it's gonna look like this. You're gonna go up fast and forward, which is gonna give it lots of spin. So I'm just gonna show what happens when you go completely up. So this is what happens. You go here. That's just up. The ball doesn't go anywhere. It has a lot of spin, but nothing really happens to the ball. And the racket slows down when you try to go up. So if you go forward, you're actually not slowing down and your racket head goes faster up. So this is what happens when you go forward. It goes fast up and the ball spins faster. So if you have to slow down your racket by going up, you're losing topspin. So you gotta do everything in your power to have your racket go fast and up without losing that speed. So section 2 covers a study by Leo and colleagues in 2020, which compares straight arm forehands to bent arm forehands when it comes to spin generation. What the study found was that forehands with a straight arm could generate more spin, but also had a bigger impact on your wrist and the small muscles. The study found that the forehands that are performed with a bent arm had more control and less injury risk than straight arm forehands. It makes sense because professional tennis players hit with a straight arm, Alcaraz, Nadal, Federer, and with a bent arm. Sinner, Djokovic, and Sinner ribs the ball pretty hard, so it's also possible to do with your arm bent. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you hit with a straight or a bent arm, as long as the rest of your technique is good, as long as the rest of the components is good, as long as you're engaging your lower muscles and not over exaggerating your wrist movement, you will be just fine. So when it comes to choosing between the two, you can choose either or. Unless you want to rip it as fast as you can, then yeah, go for the straight arm, but it's not a huge difference. So we've discovered that straight arm gives you more spin, bent arm gives you more control and less injury risk. So I'll demonstrate 2. The straight arm forehand will be like this, which is more spin. Bent arm would be more like mine. I hit with my arm bent, which I can honestly have more spin with my arm bent because I don't play with my arm straight. One thing to watch out for is having your arm be too bent. If it's here, you're not able to generate spin. And that's going to lead to section 3, in which I'll explain another thing that helps you generate more spin. In section 3, we'll go over a study done by Genevois in 2020, which showed the upper body mechanics. In general, players who generate more spin have more of an arm extension here, and then a fast pronation or follow through after the ball. They don't have shoulder internal pronation on the ball. So translation, in simple terms, to generate more spin, your body has to turn first and your arm has to be extended here as you hit. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna pronate your racket forward like this as the contact point goes. I'm gonna show you some videos of Federer doing this. His racket really closes after the contact point. Really important is to not start the pronation here, because then you're gonna be using your wrist and your elbow more. So it's gonna be like this. Your forehand should be using your lower body coming all the way up, then using your arm more, like shoulder, bicep, and things like that, instead of your wrist to add the topspin. So altogether it looks like this. You hit it, you turn, and then you pronate forward. You have to turn first and your racket lags behind, and that's how you generate lots of spin. You see this lag? This is what happens to get spin. A lot of players do this, which gives you no spin, there's no lag. And they try to compensate with their wrist and their arm and finish here. If you actually turn and put your whole body into it, it'll be a much better shot. Section 4, we'll go over the study by Yin and Go that was done in 2024 actually, so it's pretty recent. And they summarized that more trained and the higher level you are, the more torque from your knees and your hips you use to generate topspin. The more power you generate from your knees and your hips, the more racket head speed will be generated on contact point. And we know from section 1 that your racket head speed has a direct correlation with the spin. How the racket goes up, how fast the racket goes up gives you more spin, yeah? Okay, so we're gonna do an example. I'm gonna hit just arm, no legs. First is this. I cannot generate as much force. If I use my legs and my hips and get under, I can generate way more because I'm using all the big muscles. Your biggest muscles in general are your quads, your glutes, muscles in the legs, and then the trunk. Muscles here are way smaller comparatively to your leg muscles. So you want to use the big muscles in general when you play tennis to reduce the injury risk and add more topspin. I'm gonna do one bonus section. I want to explain how topspin is actually generated through the strings. So what happens is your string goes backwards once you contact the ball and then it springs out. That's why polyester strings can have more spin than, for an example, gut strings. Gut strings don't reform as fast. That's why you saw players back in the day fix their strings more than they do now. I'm gonna show with my strings. Don't judge it. This racket is a beater. All my other rackets have broken strings. These strings are also, they won't move back as fast, but you'll still see it. So what happens is your string moves this way and then springs right out, so it comes right back out. If it's a fresh string, it's gonna do it much better. So you can see it right here, because they're less worn on the side. I push the string this way, it comes out. I push it here, this way, it comes back out. So what happens is when you brush the ball, your string moves backwards and then springs it forwards. That's why it's pretty important to keep your strings fresh-ish. Pretty fresh. I mean, if you can afford to restring it every other week, do that. Okay guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you liked the video. It really helps out getting it out there. And from now on, I'll try and post more consistently than it's been. Thank you so much. I'll provide more videos for you and hopefully see you next week.